We're here, and we are going to start like right now. Welcome to the Dorman Lunch and Learn. Today we have getting ready for the air conditioned service. I'm G. Trulia, your instructor. I'm along with Bill Fifth on here. Bill will be working with me. We only have an hour, so I got to do this in a New York minute. That means we're going to speed along because with 1234 YF, the vehicle we're going to be doing right over here, we are set up to do a few neat things here to help you diagnose and repair air condition problems. So let's get going. This webinar will cover the proper procedure for servicing 134A. It'll be very similar, less time than 1234 YF. There will be tips on proper performance testing, leak detection, and much more. We'll be performing on-vehicle recovery, evacuation, limited time, meaning we're not going to vacuum for the 30 minutes to 45 minutes that is prescribed. Reason being, we only have an hour, right? So we're going to check CO2 leak check. The evaporator is mandatory with a J2913 leak detector. That is this thing right here. If you don't own one and you have a 1234 YF machine, you're going to need to buy one of these, all right? The specifications would be right on the side, telling you the J number of the tool, okay? So make sure you have one for liability purposes, and we'll make sure once the AC system is charged, we'll perform a performance test. So now we're going to go through a couple of things. First of all, is your equipment actually right? You know, you wheel your machine all around, right? We wheel it sometimes outside, some inside. You're bouncing around. Is the scale accurate? Now, if you don't have a weight like pictured here, this is the weight, right? You can use 33 pennies. Now, it's a good idea to put them in a plastic bag or saran wrap or something, because stacking them up, Murphy's Law, they'll fall all over the place. That should equal 3 ounces. So if you had 2 pounds, 6 ounces in your tank, when you put 33 pennies, you better have 3 more ounces. If there is, let's say, 2 ounces, other than that, you're going to need to adjust your scale. How do you do that? Well, that's where your RTFB, read the frickin' book, or go online and RTFI, read the frickin' information, right? This system we're going to be working on today has an expansion block. Okay, it's on the back firewall, but let's go through this system real quick. So basically, out of the compressor is a high pressure vapor. The high pressure vapor goes to the condenser. Now, usually this is somewhere 150, 250, up to 350 PSI. Each PSI equals 1 Fahrenheit. So roughly that would be 250 degrees per se. It then takes the high pressure gas, condenses it to a liquid. The high pressure liquid goes through the receiver dryer in this system. There's a desiccant in here that dries the moisture out. And what happens, that goes up until we get to the expansion valve. Think of an expansion valve as basically a garden hose, okay? I love to have my garden hose thing here. And this would be the garden hose, right? If I put it on full, we get full spray. That would be because we're warm. The thermo bulb right here, the thermosensing bulb, is reading a warm temperature. If it's cold, what does it do? It gives it a fine mist. This is how an expansion valve works. Once we take the high pressure liquid to a low pressure liquid, it goes into the evaporator. The heat from inside the vehicle boils that low liquid and makes it into a low pressure vapor. The low pressure vapor goes into the suction side of the compressor, and then it compresses it to a high pressure vapor and starts all over. Remember, if you slug the compressor, which means you put a liquid in, you cannot compress a liquid. This is an important fact that you have to know. It's like hydrostatically locking a motor. Got that all in a couple of breaths there, right, Bill? Now, orifice tubes. This vehicle does not have it, but many do. This is called a fixed orifice tube. So this little piece in here, that metal piece, that is a fixed orifice that only a certain amount of refrigerant will go through. This is what I highly suggest you get. This is a variable orifice, meaning the hole gets from small to big or big to small. That'll give you cooler duct temperatures. These are now installed by the OEs on many vehicles. You could buy them from your favorite parts store, Napa, O'Reilly's, CarQuest, whatever, Advanced, wherever you want to get them. It costs a few more bucks. I would highly recommend getting it. Okay, give you colder temperatures. This system here works a little different. We come out as a high pressure vapor. The high pressure vapor gets condensed into a liquid. It then goes through the orifice tube, this thing right here. It goes in one way. Notice you have little tits to pull on over here, or tabs. That's how it has to come out. It goes in as a high pressure liquid, drops to a low pressure liquid, goes in the evaporator. The heat of the vehicle boils the refrigerant, and in this system, it doesn't boil all of it. It goes into an accumulator, and what happens is some liquid stays at the bottom where there's oil in the accumulator. It picks up here in a vapor, right up top, right there, in vapor only, because that's the suction side. As a low pressure vapor gets sucked into the compressor, we squeeze it, and then we go through the same process again. Now, safety, safety, safety. Bill and I will have our glasses on, okay? And it's going to look like it's a sunny day out, okay? We have these yellow glasses. It's easier to find dye, but always wear safety glasses. You're looking at this vehicle here, 1234 YF is a minus 22 degrees. That means it hits something, it freezes at a minus 22 degrees. 15.4 is R134A. So this is a much colder refrigerant. Way, way better. Question?
Yeah. Can you replace the fixed orifice tube with a variable?
Yes. Can you, thank you, Bill. Can you replace the fixed orifice with a variable? The answer is absolutely yes. Now again, sometimes there's like a $10 difference or something. Put it in because it's going to give you colder duct temperatures. Thank you for that great question. The other thing is, make sure you have either the glasses that can see the dye, and make sure you check every AC system for sealant. We're going to be doing that live in a couple of seconds. Bill has this in his hand, and we will go on the vehicle with it. It goes on the high side. This is a special fitting for 1234 YF. If you don't have it, you need to buy it. Neutronic's new name is, oh boy, I forgot the name of the company. Bacharach, but MDS, I think, is the now master company. Now, why do you need it? You see this bottle here? What's this bottle say? Oh, look at that. Seals AC leaks. Seals leaks. You know what that means? It's going to put epoxy into your machine if you don't test for it, and then your machine's going to be broken. This time of year, you're looking at a huge problem. Some machines get contaminated or get sealant in it. Number one, very expensive repair. Number two, you may not get the service guy to come pick your machine up or come out for a month or two. It's just starting to get warm here in New York. So if you mess your machine up, no matter where you are, you're going to be in for a bad feeling. The third is refrigerant purity. So an identifier like this is one we use on R12 or, and that, we don't see many of those. In fact, can't remember the last one we did, but 134A. This machine right over here, that has a built-in identifier. So we are now going to go to the vehicle and do it live. So the first thing we're going to do is put our glasses on, okay? The next thing we're going to do is Bill is going to get over to the vehicle. We're going to see the high side. One thing about the high side line is usually smaller. Always hold under the line because lines could break easily. And he has his hand underneath. He's going to push this down. And this one has where you can close the valve. Close the valve means you're going to make pressure come into this little ball here. And if we look at this little ball, our sticker's starting to unsticky here. So look where the ball is. Now, we're going to take this, and here's where we start. It's all the way up. I just want to leave the thing under it. Look where the ball is. It's way up top. So that means there is no sealant in here. I would suggest you leave this on minimal of like 3 minutes and a max of 5. If the ball starts to drop, Okay, you see the ball still there? If it starts to drop, you may have some of that sealant in here. Now, we're not going to wait all this time. This vehicle is already being checked. We need to recover the refrigerant would be the next thing, or identify it. Okay, so Bill, we could take this off, and any questions, please type them in the chat box. So Bill's going to take that off. We are not, this is important, when you look at 1234YF, we are not going to close or connect these to the vehicle till we're told. Open means you're going to open to the system. When you pull these off, you don't want to cong them back all the way, right? You want to kind of lightly seat them back. But we're not putting this on yet. We need to go to the machine. So what Bill's going to do here is hit recovery, okay? And it is going to tell us it wants to identify. So we're going to move that in for a better picture. There you go. Okay. And it should be asking us, you got to hit the green arrow. By the way, it tells me how much we have left in the tank, 7.72. Soon we have to fill it. A filter, always make sure you have a spare filter around. Okay. So it says refrigerant identification. If external identifier is used, this is built in, you're going to need to connect it to a USB port. Okay. Do not connect the hoses to the vehicle. So we're going to hit the arrow key again. And it looks like our date went off on this thing again. Every time you shut it down, the internal battery must be off. What's the questions there? Okay, we will get, as soon as this starts sucking, we will get to all those questions. So now the machine comes on. It's going to make all this happy noise. That's not me with an issue with the stomach or anything. You know what I'm saying? Okay. This is actually going to clear any air out. Automatic machines will make sure there's no air when you have a leak in the machine or you recovered something, air can come in. I will get to all your questions in a second. Just want to make sure we get to the next step. And the thing with the date, we would just have to go into settings. I just said it the other day, but oh well, it's off, big deal. Now, if you print it out like we'll do later, you may want to fix the date and put your shop name in. Here, we only have an hour and we chewed up about 12 minutes so far. So now it says clearance system, connect the blue hose. So all you're going to do is go to the low side, is over here, okay? I'll get that on there for you, Bill. It's on. Now, does it say to open it? Look at the screen. It says to open it, right? You see the arrow? So open means you're putting a Schrader valve down. And now watch the gauge. Go to the blue gauge, Doreen. Go to the blue gauge. You see we're in a vacuum? That's how you put your machine away. Watch this now. You see the pressure went up? That is telling me, basically, I have pressure in the system, and we should get up to ambient temperature if the system is totally full. So right now in the shop, it is roughly 68 degrees up top. So down here, we're pretty much 68, 70 degrees. 1 pound of pressure roughly is 1 Fahrenheit. So may have a little bit of an overcharge. But again, we round this vehicle. That's why it's going to be higher. You don't want the vehicle to run prior we were checking it out. Now he's going to hit the green arrow, and he is going to identify it. And now it says it's going to blow air out. It's going to do that. And yes, I will get to your questions. When we recover, it takes time. So please bear with me with your questions. We'll run through them. So right now it is identifying. And if it's good, it's going to allow us to hook up the other hose and start recovery. This is in kilograms right on the card. There is a label right over here. Okay. So we know how many kilograms it should take. We can change it from pounds to kilograms. We can change it to charge from the high side, the low side. We'll charge from both sides, and then we will shut the high side off. It'll tell you to do that to suck the last amount of refrigerant in. You never want the high side open, means screwed down, when the car is running. Because if you had a full tank and the pressure from the compressor is coming into a full tank, you could have an issue. It may explode. That's why they don't allow the vehicle to do that. Now it says we're all good. It says we are pure, right?
Yep, 100%.
100%. And here's a big part, air, 0%. If you have absence of refrigerant, you will have air. Air and 134A or 1234YF, like this vehicle has, will cause hydrofluoric acid. Acid eats away at the inside out or the expansion block that is buried on this car under the cowl, and we'd have a problem with the system cooling. So the next thing Bill's going to do is hit the arrow key, and we could now put the red hose on, and we're going to recover the refrigerant. And then I'm going to get to your questions, because it is going to take... You see, a couple of people said no audio for some reason. Well, we got audio going quite well here. You should have it on your side. Let's see some other questions. If they come in with sealant in it, that's why you're going to need an identifier, okay, for sealant. Recommendations on a good machine? Well, the CPS one is very good. Snap-on is also a good machine. I've heard some problems with Robinairs, but you know, you never know if that's user problems. So those are probably the top three out there that I would kind of recommend. Now, if you get sealant in, here's what you do need. Let's switch to this camera. You're going to need a sealant guard, because if they have it, you're going to charge them an extra fee. You're going to take a picture of the ball that went down, and this will protect your machine. You basically take these caps off the top. You put the hose from the machine here. These hoses go to the vehicle, and the hoses from the vehicle, from the machine are here. This will capture the sealant, and unless you like working for free, you will definitely make sure you charge them. Another thing here that my tape is falling off, I did this before. Bill, give me a piece of blue tape. Right over here, you can peel it off the floor, it is on the cart. Your waste bottle, it's usually on, yeah, that's good. Perfect, thank you, Bill. So what I like doing, and mine just fell off because I'm not gonna remember the number, I'm going to put a piece of tape there and see how much oil comes out of the system. That is very important. Any other questions that we have there or comments?
Yeah, when we were hooking up this sealant identifier, what if the system is empty?
Okay, good question. If you're hooking up the sealant identifier and the system is empty, you would need to add some refrigerant, because you cannot tell if there's any sealant in it. On this system here, the max you could put in is 15% before it goes through a leak check. So very good question.
And then somebody asked information on the machine, and then someone asked about where you can get the sealant detector.
Okay, so Neutronics, Bacharach, whatever the company is called nowadays, you can email me. I'll give you the information for that. CPS is sold everywhere. They're one of our sponsors with TST, so we could hook you up with that as well. This is not a sales pitch. You can buy whatever machine you'd like. There are plenty of good people out there. We also have a snap-on machine that's very good as well. Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, does the machine compensate for the extra length of hose when using that sealer guard?
Ah, so that's a good question. Does the machine compensate for the length of hose? Well, when you have the sealant guard, what the machine's going to do, you're going to see at the end, it is going to suck everything out. If it puts in 1 pound, 2 ounces, for argument's sake, or so many kilograms, you're going to see it all get sucked in. Do not remove the hoses from the vehicle until you follow all the screen prompts. So whatever you put out is all going to get sucked in. What you're going to do is not put the refrigerant in connected to the recycle guard, because you already sucked it all out to clean it up, right? You're going to put it directly in, so you shouldn't have a problem. Next question.
What if you get a car in with 134A next to a 1234YN?
Okay, what happens when you get a car mixed? That is basically, you're going to have to recover that into a separate unit. That is something that you need another recovery tank for, and they do sell recovery-only tanks. I have a machine that is called the scavenger that we can put it in, and of course that's an extra charge to the customer unless you like working for free. If you like working for free, please contact me and I will send you the cars to your shop. You do them for free and I'll make money on them, right? So no, the thing is, make sure you're going to have that charge for someone who has a contaminated system. Go ahead, Bill.
This one is about a system that's clogged and hasn't been serviced. He's been running into many early Ford Escapes that shut off the compressor at 400 to 500 PSI. What is the best way to flush and repair?
Okay, 400 to 500 PSI, that is excessive pressure. Usually cutoff is at 350. If you have a clog, whether it be in the condenser, expansion valve, the split of the system is the compressor, expansion valve, and or orifice tube. You would have to make sure that the system, most manufacturers do not recommend flushing anymore. So what you would need to do is put air sep filter in, and the air sep filter, Bill, can you get that right up in that cabinet up there? It's, I think, on the bottom, the screen set. Okay, so right now that machine, nice and noisy, is going to tell us what we recovered. We're going to show you, I think it's one down, Bill, the next down, right? Is that the air? Yeah, okay. So there are a couple of things, and I just spoke to the owner of AirSep yesterday, and this is what you're going to do if you have sealant or garbage in the system. Let's say you got Black Death. Black Death is when a compressor starts spitting metal out and you start eating up rubber. So here, these go in. These are all different screens that fit. Can you see those good? There's an application chart. This screen would go behind the compressor and it would catch the debris. Now, if there's a lot of debris in the system, you may have to open the system up multiple times. They do sell another thing that, and again, O'Reilly's, they're under the Dorman product name. Napa, CarQuest, Advance, they're all going to have those. Okay. So now, we went all the way down. It's going to look for any type of pressure. We're going to do this. I'm only going to do a minute of vacuum. We will worry about this later. Normally, you should do a minimal of 35 to 45 minutes. This machine has what they call a high CFM pump, standard cubic feet per minute, and you don't really need to go real long. So now we're going to put it in a vacuum, and we're going to show you with CO2 that we have right over here. Bill is going to connect this to the car. I don't have to. We have a special hose that comes with the Bullseye kit. So Bill will be, once we get it in a vacuum, I'm going to shut the low side off, meaning I'm going to unscrew it, okay? And he's going to put this on the high side. He's going to undo that. And we are basically in a vacuum. That should have went. I think I waited too long to hit the key. So now it'll pull it down, and if it sees any pressure in the system, it won't allow you to hit vacuum. All right, so this should go all the way down to 29.9 or 30. Franklin, could you get me the Bullseye detector, the new one? Okay, we're basically good. I'm going to kill that. We're going to wait a second or two to make sure that doesn't move, that we're in a vacuum. Thank you, Franklin. We're going to use this thing here called Bullseye to find a CO2 leak. Okay, I'm going to put it on, let it warm up. Bill's going to put that there. He's going to go on the high side. I'm disconnecting this unit here, the low side. Bill's going to disconnect the high side. And what we're going to do is introduce 200 pounds of CO2. This will beep till it warms up and goes into a mode. And I want to show you this. Look, we're on. Can they see that? Yep. My breath has CO2, right? Now we're going to let it clear out. And Bill is inserting 200 pounds of CO2 into the system. There is no refrigerant in the system. The system is in a vacuum. Okay, so now he's cranking it up to 200 psi. And once it's in there, what you would like to do is you would check for a leak. So we would take the detector and you would go in. This has active shutter grill, so you got to be careful. If you go out here, you may not catch it. We can go here on the line. This has an IXH that we'll talk about, meaning it's using refrigerant gas around the liquid line, and we can go all around and see if there is a leak. If it beeps, you got a problem, right? Now, the other nice thing with 200 psi, the reason why you want to do that, if I start it up, hands clear, hoses clear. If I start it up, we should hear the compressor kick on. And the compressor clicked on right now. And you're not going to kill the system, okay? We've run plenty of these with CO2. Why do you want to do that? Well, let's say you got the typical problem. You got these condensers that always leak at the bottom, like on these Hondas, right? Very common on a lot of vehicles. So if you had that, you're going to need to make sure, besides telling the owner of the vehicle, hey, you got a bad condenser and we're going to need to put a new dryer in. Here's the bottom, has a replaceable dryer, but comes out as one part when you got a leak. And by the way, do not forget this foamy stuff. You see this? If this is not around the unit, you don't have the proper airflow going through and we could have a problem, okay? So we don't want a problem. Now the next thing is, we didn't see a leak, and we'll show you one, whether it's coming out of the drip tube from the evaporator, okay? You would go down to the drip tube on the vehicle and see if you have it. And again, notice foam, very, very important, okay? If we don't have that, that's okay, no leak, we check all around. We also want to shut that off for a second. You want to lift up, and you could check. The number one leaking area is the Schrader valves.
Pull it off.
Yeah, pull it off for a second. So I got nothing here. Go near that one. Up, picking it up already. Now he can change the sensitivity, but you see that beeping? Come in tight on that. You see that? We know there's a leak right in the Schrader. This is a new vehicle with about 8,000 miles on it, okay? It'll be going back to the dealer so they can fix the leak. Probably just a Schrader valve, one that's leaking, okay? And if Bill even puts the cap on, is that the right one? I think it is, right?
Nope.
Oh, gave him the wrong one. I lied. Now notice when he's far from it, and then we could spray some of the Bullseye Foam Sometimes it'll pick it up with the cap on. Right now it's not, so we're not going to worry about it. To prove that this is an issue, we're going to use this Bullseye Foam, and he can take the cap right off. Some pictures I have with it coming right through the cap. That cap has a very good seal. The seals are in here. Okay. Now Bill's going to spray this foam. These little cans, you don't shake them anymore. So he's going to go right in the top of the hole. And that pink should turn to yellow. So you're going to have to pull in a bit on that shot. Okay. So we're going to need to move in just a bit. Camera will adjust. And there's some yellow up top. And there's a bubble in there, Bill?
Maybe very slightly.
So it has a small leak that the detector picked up.
Yeah, it's bubbling.
And it's starting to bubble and it's starting to turn yellow. You can see the difference in color. Okay. Now what we're going to do is, you can shut that off. We don't need this or that. Now, big question always asked. Well, when I put that in, how do I get the CO2 out? Well, guess what? You're not sucking this into your machine. You are going to basically put the high line back on. So he's going to place that back on. He's going to make sure it is off. I'm giving Bill a rag, because what we're going to do is, before he opens that valve up, open means he's going to turn it down clockwise. He's going to do this very slowly into a rag. Why? If you open it all the way, you will get a bunch of oil coming out. So he's opening this up until we have no pressure in the system. So you may hear a hissing noise if I shut up. You hear that? You want it coming out slow, and if the rag is getting a lot of oil in it, which I don't think it is. Okay, so no oil is coming out. We're going to let all 200 PSI out. Once we let it out, we then put this into a vacuum. This is what we do because you can get messed up. And what do I mean messed up? You're going to see there's going to be a mandatory leak check that is 10 minutes on vacuum on any machine you own. It is a federal law that it does that. Then you're going to put 15% of a charge in there. So right now we have nothing. We're going to hook up high and low side. Those gauges should read 0. Okay. Now we're going to hit vacuum. Hit vacuum, Bill, and we'll only do about a minute. And we will look at some of the questions. So hit arrow, then vacuum comes up, hit a minute. Now again, you should follow the procedure, but we're going to get 10 minutes of vacuum on this. And we are going to, fix this after we're done with the webinar. So let's see what other questions we may have at this point. Any questions or?
Was that vacuum or the oil recovered? I don't know when that was though.
We looked at oil recovery, nothing came out of the bottle. Okay, that was down here. So nothing came out, and that's what most systems, nothing really comes out. If you look at that bottle, I rather put the tape because, you're busy with numbers, who the hell knows what number you wrote down or didn't write down. And now we're down into a vacuum. Remember, all the CO2, it is not illegal to vent CO2 to the atmosphere. Please remember that. Now, why do we do that? We have seen a lot of times with the leak detector that nothing actually happens trying to find a leak. Okay. Now, the 2913 leak detector by law, you have to have. So right now, we're in a vacuum. Any other questions there, Bill?
Yeah, there's a couple. Is the CO2 better than traditional leak detectors, especially for detecting evaporators?
Yes. CO2 is a smaller molecule, so it is way better. If you look at some of the videos I've done in the past, even in a class, I remember one, the guy's evaporator and his condenser are bad, and the detector did not pick it up, but CO2 did.
What about using nitrogen?
Nitrogen's not bad if you have a nitrogen detector. I used it for years. Nitrogen is actually a little bit smaller molecule, but find a leak detector. Robinair is making something or has made something. I don't know what it is. CO2 is now approved by General Motors, so the Bullseye kit approved, and not only for the AC system, but high voltage batteries that may have a leak. Before we answer more questions, let's put a charge in here. Okay. So now we're gonna hit this, we're gonna charge the unit, and we have 570 kilograms is the amount. So he's gonna hit charge, and watch this, it ain't gonna put it all in. It is only gonna put in 15% of a charge. I will take this leak detector. This is a 2913 I showed you earlier. We're gonna put it on because it does need to warm up. This is for 134 up top. This is the smallest leak. That's you wanna put it on the highest sensitivity on the bottom. And when this starts going beep, 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 we're okay. And notice it's purging any air out of the machine. We'll leave this here and then we're gonna put this inside the car. Does the system utilize a high voltage compressor? The reason why they're asking that, if it's a hybrid or EV, first of all, no PAG oil goes in there because PAG is an alkaline and you could get an isolation fault. We're gonna hit no, the red doohickey. Now, we are gonna select both ports. We're gonna charge from both sides, and you wanna put the amount, kilograms, select kilograms. It is 0.570, so kgs, yep. Enter, and then 0.570. Now that is gonna be a full charge. We'll double check that right there. Yep. Okay, and we're gonna hit charge. Now watch what happens. First of all, you hear our detector. Make sure the hoses are connected. Read these prompts on any machine. Make sure they're connected and the valves are open. We know the valves are open, meaning clockwise. Now it is going to do a mandatory 10-minute. There's nothing you could do skipping this. Bill did not hit any keys. This is by law. You have to do it. The evaporator inside the vehicle has basically a DOT, Department of Transportation, and a J standard from SAE. So now we have 10 minutes to waste, and we will answer some of your questions.
There was one from before. How accurate is the scale when you evacuate? Can you rely on it to accurately know how much of a charge was in the system?
Yes, you could. You can definitely find out what the charge was in the system if your scale was correct. Remember the 33 pennies we opened up with? If that's the case, you should have no problem. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Let's just switch for a second to see where we are here on that camera. All right, I got that leak detector in there. We'll put the fan on in a little bit. Switch back. Okay.
And then there was one guy that said uses AC oil to check the Schrader valve leaks if it's accessible. Guess and just put a little in there.
You could put a little oil. You know what I usually do? If you got good spit, it really spit bubbles up real well. It may sound disgusting, but it's an easy thing to do. Don't look for dye there. And by the way, let's talk about dye. It'll take an hour for dye to circulate in the system. This light from UView or CPS, dye has different spectrums. So if you look at dye, okay, and there's probably some in this bottle, I'm gonna put this light on and look how that lights up. You could see this dye there, and especially the glasses we have on. How's it look without the glasses?
Not as.
Okay, so let's see if we can get it through the lens.
You try to do it?
Yeah, let's see if you do it. Yeah, you can see it kind of lighting up. Of course, my stupid hand's in the way. Take glasses away. So you can see it's not as bright. You still see it. But if you don't have the right spectrum light, you're not going to find a dye. And in 134A and 1234YF, very little oil circulates through the system. That means it's going to be harder to find that dye problem in that vehicle. Any other questions?
What brand CO2 detector, someone asked?
The brand CO2 is Bullseye That is this thing right here. It's a whole kit from Automotive Test Solutions. They're the only one on the market. They have it patented. So that's why some people are trying to come out with something different. But right now, ATS is the only game around. We've been using it for years with great success. Go look at some of the videos on the TST YouTube channel or on ATTS or TST. Okay. What we're going to do is switch the slides for a second because we can get a lot of stuff out of the way. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the sealant. Remember, we got about 8 minutes left or 7 minutes. So you need that sealant detector. Look at these pictures, what happens with sealant in it. Okay. Look at this. Look at this hose where the sealant dried in. This would be inside your machine. It is epoxy. They sell this junk all over the place. People buy it thinking they're going to make a quick fix to their vehicle. You don't want any of this. Okay. Here's the thing you need, the Aircept dual guard or single guard. If you have single guard, you will recover from one side only. We have the dual guard one on there. Either one works. And if you're on a hybrid or EV vehicle, Aircept made this charge guard that takes and burns the PAG oil. Now, there is a little caveat here. If you have a oil or a refrigerant like 1234 YF that is flammable, you got to be careful doing this because if you heat a flammable up, it may just go boom, right? So that is a different ball game. They're coming out with a new one that Aircept is working on. Some of the things you need. You could have a 2791 or 2913 leak detector, mandatory 2913. The UV light, these caulking guns that you could put refrigerant in once there is refrigerant inside. Okay. Now, here's the leak detector on a real vehicle that spotted this thing right here, and we sprayed the foam. You see the pink turn to yellow? That means it had a compressor clutch seal leak. When you use the leak detector that we have in the vehicle, the 2913 or 2791, as pictured here, well, guess what? 9 out of 10 times it don't work. Or if you blow on it, it goes off, but you can't find a leak. Putting the foam there gives you that extra shot. Question real quick.
Have you ever considered using an inches of water gauge with a rubber hose over the Schrader to check for leaks? 30 inches of water equals 1 PSI.
Actually, about 27.9 equals that, but that's pretty damn close, okay? That is basically something you could do, but it's real easy to use a detector, right? If you do the spit test, always lubricate the seals in the cap with some oil, so not bad. Anything else?
No.
Okay, so when we do our performance check, hopefully in a bit, when that thing is out of its mind done, we're going to look at using this sensor inside. This basically tells you if you have a clogged filter like this one here. The blower motor on high speed out of the proper duct should give us about 13 to 16 miles an hour, or roughly 1,000 to 1,400 standard cubic feet per minute. That being said, anything less than 10 miles, under 900 standard cubic feet, you probably have a restriction. Now that restriction could be a clogged cabin air like this, or it could be hoses that fell off a duct or whatever. You need to check it out. Very easy done. 1234 YF fax. First of all, it has to go through a mandatory leak check, 10 minutes. Doesn't matter whose machine you have, and no, you can't jerk with it. It has to do a pressure check. The pressure check is where we put the leak detector in the vehicle and is only 15% of the charge. This is mandatory because of flammability, okay? R1234YF, maximum charge 15%. You're going to put this charge in and look at the evaporator. The panel duct is selected to the floor panel and the fan is on low. We've already set it up. The 2913 leak detector on its highest sensitivity and with air. Questions, Bill?
What about using soapy?
Soapy water, forget it. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. Those days are over. You're not going to find leaks with wood soap, okay? Now here is some information about the Canyon here, courtesy of AllData, the different components it has on it. How many minutes we have left?
2, just over 2.
Okay. So basically this AC system is controlled. All the button switches require a control function by the HV system between the operator and the control module. The selection values are passed to the HVAC control module via a LIN bus. So in other words, this is not on the CAN bus, it's on the LIN bus, a slower network. The module in the GM device interfaces between. If the battery positive voltage circuit loses power, all HVAC DTCs and settings will be erased from Keep Alive memory. The body control module, which is in the vehicle mode master, provides a device on signal. The HVAC control module provides blower and air delivery, and air temperature. Now, here's some of the features. Afterblow. You know what afterblow is? You ever get windows that are fogged up? You want to go in and look at this. Available if reprogrammed by the technician. So if your customer is complaining, hey, my windows fog up sometimes when I shut it off, you need afterblow, okay? And you'll have to go in. In this case, you would be using the GDS software to go in and do it. It does do purge, personalization, and actuator calibration. What's actuator calibration? The doors may have to go from one position, closed, to all the way open to the middle. That's called homing the motor. Okay, so here's some of the actuator stuff here. It's a 5-wire stepper motor. There's 4 step coils in it, and basically that is going to make that calibration. The blower motor is controlled by the battery positive and ground circuits. We should be getting close, right?
26 seconds.
26 seconds. The evaporator temperature, 2-wire NTC, negative temperature coefficient. The sensor is installed near the evaporator core to measure the temperature exiting the core. Some use like a meat thermometer. This one uses, like Mercedes, a little thermistor right on the outside. The operation of the compressor solenoid will be adjusted as needed to quickly reach the maintained target temperature. We're good to go to the next step?
Yeah, there's 2 quick questions.
Okay, 2 quick questions. We're going to pop over.
Someone asked what CO2?
What CO2? CO2 is just inert gas CO2. You get it from your,
brand or something.
what brand? There's no real brand. We get it from Airgas. That is the biggest one in the country. The little tank, we had a 20-pounder, but it's a 10. They ran out of tanks, believe it or not, even though I owned the 20-pound tank, which is kind of crazy. Anything else?
Yeah, does afterblow limit the musty smell in the evap core?
Afterblow does, but if you got a musty smell, you also would want to use the CPS unit that actually goes in and puts out a particular chemical to eat up moisture. So right now we got to go to the next thing here. It says we got to do an AC blower motion here. Doreen, maybe see if we get in a little more.
Sure.
So we put the motor to the low position. So Bill, you can go in there, put that on. AC switch to off. That means the compressor is not on. Air distribution set to the floor. We already did that. And a 2913 compliant leak detector. Maximum into the floor duct. So we're going to switch to the other one. You're in there. It's all running. Doreen, switch the camera.
Then it needs to get turned off.
Okay, so it has to go back on to the little doohickey. The key has to go on. The fan has to go on. And you got to run this for 5 minutes. While this is going, because we're getting close to the end here, let me see what other questions we have. Afterblow, what about soapy water? We did that one there. Forget it. That won't work. Okay, so we're all caught up. So you see the leak detector there on the floor. It's up near the duct of the console. The blower is on low. You got 15%, switch back here, please. 15% of a charge that's in there. And it says, was this test performed? Now, we got to cheat here because the amount of time, right? So, yes, the test, you could hear it beeping. Now, that right here means we don't have a leak. You can see the light is only on one, okay? Could they see that pretty good? Okay. So we're on the highest sensitivity on low. We don't have a leak. That's 15% of the charge. We're going to say yes. Now you got to realize some of these machines are connected to the internet. When you say you've done this, you are responsible, okay? So it says leak check. Was a leak found? You better hit no, because if not, it's going to take you into a whole thing of vacuum check and all that. Does the system have an auxiliary rear evaporator? In this case, no. Otherwise, it has you do another test there. Now it is going to say charging. You're going to put the rest of the charge in the system, watch the gauges, and what do we have there, Bill?
Is universal refrigerant oil okay to use for 1234?
Universal. I'd suggest using a POE, polyester oil, with dye in it. Never put more than 2 ounces in. When you replace a part, like this evaporator, this is a common mistake everyone makes. I just did a hands-on class. Oh, I never put it in. I put it through my machine. The chances of the oil getting in here, if this takes 2 ounces or 3 or 1, you got to put it in here with the turkey-based abode. Okay, we have little cups that we fill it up with the oil. If it says 3 ounces, put 3 in, suck it in, put it in here, lubricate the O-rings with polyester, not PAG oil. An alkaline is acidy, and especially if you're on a vehicle that is electrified compressor, always use the right oil in the compressor. So here it may tell us, it just says a PAG oil. It may say the number. I think it does. Yeah. You would have to put the exact oil in. You can buy that from your favorite parts store or the OE. Okay. So whatever one floats your boat, that's the way to go. Okay. Any other questions while we are waiting for this to charge up?
It looks like it's done.
Okay, so now it looks like it's done. We're going to hit yes. And now we're going to do a performance test. So it says start the vehicle. So Bill's going to stay in there. He's also going to bring this thing in there. And we'll show you how this works. He's going to bring that inside in a minute, but I want to show you here on a machine. When he starts the car, I'm going to hit the button. Now, those gauges should go down. The low side should drop. And now it's telling us where our pressures are at. We have a thermometer inside the vehicle. And you can see we're roughly at about 150, 175. This should drop down into the 30s. And that would tell us inside the car is getting cold. We're at 68 degrees inside. We need to switch the ducts to the panel. Okay. And because we can't cover all the slides, you need to go through it. I gave you information. Unfortunately, this is only 1 hour. So the other thing that we could also do that I'll have Bill put in there is this is a great system. And this right here, we're going to put a probe outside the car. I'm going to have to cheat here a little bit because this has active shutters that are not activated. So we're roughly at 71 degrees in the shop. I'm going to give Bill one of these to put in the center duct or right duct. Center duct or right duct because it is going to make a difference. I am going to put this roughly down here near the condenser's best, the condenser's best I can get. And we are looking for a 30-degree difference. So this is going to take a little bit. Bill will have to race the vehicle up to about $2,000 or so. And if we go back to the gauges, you can see this vehicle is going to be pretty cold. You see our low side? We are really pulling down really good. High side is going up to 200. Our temperature should be dropping. We're down to 55. We have the fan on high. The windows are open, and look at our difference here. We want a 30-degree difference. The top is inside, the bottom is outside. So we got to run it for a few minutes. Inside with the gauge from the machine, we're at 44, 43. So out here, this one's still catching up. So 43.7 right now on high fan. 48 here, 81 in front of the condenser. Did we go 30 degrees difference? Yes, you do the math, we went over 30-degree difference. So now we have a very good vehicle. where the system is working right. You still got a leak, obviously, you got to tell the customer about. We're going to print the results, and the results comes out. It tells us what the temperature was, what the pressure readings are. Okay. Sometimes you may want to take a picture because these papers, the thermal paper, have a problem. And now look at your gauge readings. You know you're going to be chilly inside this vehicle. To get the best or lowest temperature, okay, you're going to want to go down to the lowest speed of fan. Now what we're going to do, Bill, you can kill it. We're going to, no, leave it on actually. We're going to hit the next step, and it's going to tell us what to do. Now it says, close the high side fitting. So I got to get around here. And I'm going to close the high side, which means counterclockwise. And then Bill will hit OK, and watch what it tells you there what to do. It's going to tell you, this goes back to a question we had. It's going to tell us what to do with the other side, okay? So now it tells us what the system is, and it's calculating some stuff out here, and then it's going to tell us to do something with the other side. Don't forget to put your glasses on, right?
Do the fan speed too.
Now the next step is here. Now it says, close valves and disconnect couplers, okay? So we're going to close this, and we're going to disconnect it. I'm going to go on the other side, going to pop it up, and it already knows that you have the full charge in there. I'm good. We're good. Going to hang these over the machine for now. And watch what it does. Bill's going to hit the screen there. Insert oil if necessary. Now you notice it has an injector gun. No oil came out, we're not putting any in. Never put more than 2 ounces oil dye in. So we're just going to go here, clearing the system. It's going to suck these hoses all the way down. You should always put your machine away in a vacuum. That way you can know if any of the line ends in the back of the machine, there are ends like this, or if your couplers here maybe leaking at these ends, you always want to check that out. This is the proper procedure. When it's done clearing, notice it didn't go all the way down into a vacuum. So what I do is I want to make sure my machine don't have a problem. I'm going to hit the OK key. I'm going to hit vacuum. And all you got to do is put it on for less than a minute just to get this gauge all the way down. Okay. And now it'll suck it down to 29.9 or 30. And that way, when we're down there, we know we have a problem or not. Now we're going to show you another great device from AirSep that is going to be a great diagnostic tool. We've got a few more things to show you. So right there, I'm good. I would shut my tank valves down. And all your questions are going to have to wait a minute. We are getting close to time. So now on this tool, we're going to connect this to the high side and the low side, and always hold your hand under it. And we're going to look at this diagnostic great tool here from AirSep. I'm going to open up the high side. Watch what comes in. Now this is refrigerant and oil coming in here. We're going to let it sit, and we're going to look through and see if we have any debris in there. If there's any oil, I can tell you there's some dye in there, okay? Not from anything we put in, from the factory. You see how that lights up? Okay. So we can see if we have a problem. Also, you want to see if your compressor is working in the amount of time here we have. I shut off the high side. I open up the low side. Watch what happens. We are going to suck that down. You see it boiling? As it's boiling, the bubbles, that is telling us the suction side of the compressor is actually pulling us in, and open that very slowly. Okay. Now we let it go all the way. I'm going to open it up till there's nothing in there. And now that you're clear, we are going to shut the valves, both valves shut, and we could then shut the low and high side here and take them off. Let's look at the fan speed real quick, give you an idea. Okay, so Bill has this unit. Ready? Okay, go ahead, Bill. He's going to put the fan on high. Look at the speed, 17.6, 18. Go down. It's me right here. Let me maybe zoom in. Okay. So you see that? 18.7. Do we have, and notice where Bill is at, middle duct. Middle duct or right duct is super important. Okay. Now, we covered a lot and wish we had more time, but you know Murphy's Law, we don't have more time. Okay. So, a couple of things we'll go over quick. I hate to keep you more, but this is a big subject. This had the expansion block here in the back. We have the IHX line, that is the IXH, that is the integrated heater exchange line that I discussed earlier. And that basically is taking the low side vapor, the liquid line is the high side. It cools it off for superheating, okay? Go through all this information in your handout. And, you know, why do you need to know all this information about even active shutters? You know why? If you have a problem where the shutters are never opening up, can you get the right air conditioned temperature as the customer's driving down the road? Hell no. You would have extra heat that you couldn't release, right? So you got to read the system. System description, very, very important. Here's the AirSep tool that we just used. And when you look at it, here is the miscibility, is basically looking at a good versus some bad here. So take a look at that. And this is important to get that sample. How do you know your compressor wasn't slugged, is not pumping? Well, you could see it right from here. You could see if you have too much dye or oil in there. If that thing was stained with oil and the oil was still in on that unit, you would have a problem, okay? People love putting oil in, especially with an oil bottle, okay? Now we're going to end in just a couple of minutes. The 30-degree difference, write down you want at least 30-degree difference. That is something that is going to be great. This here is man tooth. We'll play this little video real quick. Take a listen.
So here we have both the high side and low side pressures are equal, so the system is basically under its equalization status. And here we're going to start the vehicle.
So equalization status means the system was not running. They're roughly equal. These are pressure transducers.
We have two temperature inputs, and the system is actually doing some calculations for us, primarily looking at the subcooling and superheat there at the bottom two rows. You'll see the superheat on the left. That is the evaporator boiling, right? And then the subcooling is the condenser, as it's condensing that gas into a liquid. And then here we're looking at what's called an enthalpy chart, which is a thermodynamic performance of the refrigeration loop.
And make a long story short, thanks to my buddy Scott Brown here for doing that video. Basically, there's two wireless pressure transducers. You can put this to an Android tablet, a Windows-based, or a Apple tablet like he has there. Can't blame him. He's in California. You got to be appled up, right? But it could really tell you if you have a problem, especially from the firewall backside, the inside of the car, that sometimes is tough. You think you have the right charge in the car, but that is really splitting hairs. Here we talked about the performance test. These are all in your handout. The 30-degree difference. Look at the condenser. If you have a clog, thermal imagers are phenomenal for this. And we want to remind you from TST, we have Brandon Steckler coming out May 18th at 7 o'clock, about 6:45 we start. Scan Tool Analysis 101, a brand new class he's put together for us. Gaining diagnostic direction from the driver's seat. And whew, aren't you glad it's over? So I kept you 4 minutes and 52 seconds extra. Do you think you got something out of it? Type in the letter Y if this was helpful to you. The letter Y if it was helpful. Doreen will type my email in if you have a question. I'll be more than glad to get back to you. If you think this was not helpful or sucks, type the letter N in. So if it's no good, letter N, good, letter Y, and if you want to stay on, I'll answer a couple of those questions. But I want to thank you on behalf of Dorman Products, myself and Bill Foothorn and Doreen behind the camera, and even Franklin for handing us the Bullseye, right? So we thank everyone here, and let's look at some info. The tool with the glass, I think I explained it, shows you the amount of oil if there's a problem. You could go back to your slides right here if you want to go diagnose it, right here from AirSep. This will give you, if you have oil and refrigerant with good miscibrosity, and right here with dye in it, pour is like a separation, okay? You could have debris inside of it with particles. You could have contaminated with water. How do you get water? Moisture in the system, right? Moisture. And moisture and 134A and 1234YF, hydrofluoric acid. Any other questions? In my opinion, I don't go by that, but most manufacturers want you to max the system out with the doors and windows open. I basically start with a high fan with everything closed, drop it low, and remember, the coldest temperature is going to be at the lowest speed. That is real important. Well, once again, thank you for your questions. If I didn't get to it, I will definitely answer your email, okay? gt@attsttraining.com. And again, if you thought it was helpful, letter Y. If not, letter N. Thank you again from New York. Enjoy your lunch. Sorry I kept you now 7 minutes late, okay? Have a great day.